Morning all. In this class, we shall discuss the contribution of Joseph Addison and Alexander Pope to literary criticism. Joseph Addison was born in the year 1672 and was died in 1719. Addison was a journalistic critic. He was the editor of The Spectator, the most widely read periodical of the period. He wrote occasional essays in The Spectator on literary principles and individual writers on their works. His essays on the true and false wit, tragedy, the pleasures of the imagination, and Paradise Lost are worth mentioning. Let's see the qualities of neoclassicism in his essays. On true and false wit, Addison defines true wit as the resemblance of ideas giving pleasure to the fancy. The pleasure that is thus given should involve ingenuity and surprise. Thus, when the poet says that his mistress's bosom is as white as snow, the comparison is obvious. There is nothing ingenuous about it. And Addison on tragedy. Addison says that the perfect tragedy is the noblest production of human nature. The tragic hero is a virtuous man struggling with human nature. Modern tragedies excel the ancient Greek tragedies, according to Addison. Addison is opposed to the tragic comedy with its mixture of tragedy and comedy, which says Addison is as absurd as weaving the adventures of Aeneas and Hudibras into one poem. Addison favors the blank verse and opposes the rhyme in tragedy. And Addison on the pleasure of the imagination. Addison exhaustively describes the pleasures of imagination which arise from visible objects which we see before with our eyes. The pleasure given to the child by the sight of the rainbow, the fireworks, etc. is called the primary imagination. The pleasure aroused in as by a poem, a painting, a statue or a beautiful building is described by Addison as a secondary imagination. The pleasures aroused by direct sight of natural objects called primary pleasures are fleeting. Fleeting means moving. But the pleasures furnished by poems, paintings, etc. are called secondary pleasures as everlasting. And Addison on Paradise Lost. Addison devotes 18 papers in The Spectator to an analysis of Paradise Lost. The action is single, complete and great. The action of Paradise Lost is single, it is the fall of a man. It is complete because it is contrived in hell and also executed upon earth and punished in heaven. The action is great because as it comprises the fate not of an individual or a nation but that of mankind. The characters in Paradise Lost are distinguished from one another. Satan and his wily tricks to corrupt Eve, the fallen angels in hell, each with his distinct traits means characteristics. So each with his distinct traits, and finally Adam and Eve in heaven in their state of unsullied innocence. Addison appreciates Milton's style, which he says is in keeping with the sublimity of the theme. At the same time, Addison finds fault with Milton's Latinized sentence structure and his overwrought similes. Addison has all the qualities of neoclassicism, such as leaning on ancient classics, his emphasis on order and discipline. So these are all the details about Joseph Addison and his contribution to literary criticism. Next, let's move on to Alexander Pope. Pope was born in 1688 and died in 1744. His Pastorals was published when he was 17. His essay on criticism, which was published in the year 1711, was praised by Addison and his fame was considerably enhanced by the Rape of the Lock published in 1712. His translation of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey gained him more than £5,000 from publishers and subscribers. Thus made rich, Pope built himself a mansion at Twickenham on the Thames near London. So this last line is the additional personal information about Alexander Pope. And let's see his literary contribution. His essay on criticism. This poem is a jumble of contradictory critical maxims. His main advice to poets is to follow nature. He does not state clearly what he means by nature. He might mean the fundamentals of human nature. Pope would like literature to mirror human nature as it is, scrapping away all artificialities. He always insists on nature. In this respect, he looks forward to the romantic poets of the 19th century. Pope's respect for Aristotle and Horace. Pope wants poets to follow the rules of composition laid down by Aristotle and Horace. He says that the following ancient rules is one way of following nature. Also he quotes, ancient rules are but nature methodized. I repeat, ancient rules are but nature methodized. Pope shows himself to be a rigid classist when he stresses the need to restrain imagination. Comparing imagination to a wild horse, he emphasizes the need to check the horse. In thus attaching equal importance to reason and restraint, Pope anticipates 20th century classists such as T.S. Eliot. And Pope's relaxation of classicism. Pope is not a rigid classist. He says that perfection in literary composition is unattainable. He holds that a faultless piece never was, nor is, never shall be. He holds that a faultless piece never was, nor is, never shall be. The implication is that several different methods are permissible to strive towards perfection. And the important thing, Pope's refusal to idolize Shakespeare. Pope is like Dr. Johnson later, highly critical of Shakespeare. He uses the images of a building to convey his point. He compares Shakespeare to a majestic piece of Gothic architecture. This is certainly a glowing tribute. In the same breath, Pope points to the existence of many flaws in Shakespeare. They are like the defects in an otherwise magnificent building. Pope's price of Shakespeare is thus reserved. And Pope as a poetic critic. Pope is of the opinion that only a poet can function as a critic. They are like the two sides of a coin. Only the man who excels as a poet can teach how to write good poems or what the marks of good poetry are. And at the same time, Pope is aware of the danger of a poet admiring only the kind of poetry that he writes and attacking all other types. This danger we see it in T.S. Eliot running down all romantic poetry. And Pope's advice to critics. First, Pope wants the critic to carve out for himself the domain in which he excels. Domain means character. So Pope wants the critic to carve out for himself the domain in which he excels. Pope means to say that a critic should confine himself to the genre or age which he has mastered. And Alexander Pope on nature, his view on nature. Pope wants critics to follow nature. He always insists on nature from the following to the end of the essay. This is a very vague piece of advice. Vague means not clear. So, this is a very vague piece of advice. What Pope has in mind is that the critics should follow ancient authorities such as Aristotle, as he mentioned before. He can use the epics of Homer and Virgil as a touchstone to test the worth of contemporary poets. Also, Pope prizes nature as exemplified in ancient classics. The standards of nature are firm and unalterable. Pope says that standards of nature are firm and unalterable. Pope's adoration of ancients is blind to say the least. His view was later questioned by Dr. Johnson. And finally, Pope describes ancient critical principles as nature methodized. I repeat, Pope describes ancient critical principles as nature methodized. Creative imagination is like a wild horse, it must be checked by the critic's reasoning power. So, thus, Pope legitimizes the functioning of the critic. So these are all the details about both Joseph Addison and Alexander Pope and their contribution to literary criticism. Thank you.